Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. Today's video is how can Manchester United line up next season in midfield with Camavinga. How does Camavinga fit into the Manchester United midfield? Can him and Pogba play in the pivot? Can he hold on his own? Is he a dual pivot player? Is he a box-to-box player? What kind of player is Camavinga? What kind of player could Camavinga be moulded into? Because he is 18, so you know he can get moulded into a CDM specialist. He could get moulded into a box-to-box specialist. How can we line up with Camavinga next season? And what would the midfield look like next season at Manchester United if we sign Camavinga? So please hit that like button, subscribe down below and share this video. Daily Manchester United content on the channel. Camera won't focus, but yeah, subscribe for daily United content on the channel. But as you're aware, Camavinga to Manchester United is very, very close. It's a battle between Manchester United, PSG and Real Madrid for Camavinga, and you never know, by the time you're watching this video, Man United could have signed Camavinga, or Camavinga could have not gone to Manchester United, could have gone to PSG, for all we know. But Man United are going all out for Camavinga. They are in talks with Rennes. Fabrizio Romano's confirmed contact, and Camavinga to Manchester United is a likely transfer. Right now it's a 50-50 between United and PSG, but we'll see where that goes. But we're not here to talk about the transfer news. We're here to talk about what does Camavinga add to Manchester United. So that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. So Camavinga is only 18 years of age, so he can really be moulded into a player. You know, he could be moulded into a Pogba-like player, he could be moulded into a Kante-like player, but because of his mobility and defensive type movement, people often compare him to the next Kante. Didier Deschamps actually compared him to Kante because Didier Deschamps is obviously the French manager. He can be moulded into a top player. So Camavinga, for an 18-year-old, has played a lot of first-team football. He's actually played 44 games as a CDM and 36 games as a centre mid, and even one game as an attacking midfielder. Now, last season, he played the majority of his games as a centre midfielder rather than a DM. So a lot of people was like, is Camavinga the CDM that Manchester United need? Is he going to fill that CDM role? And the answer is yes and no, because Camavinga is not going to come in and hold on his own and Bruno and Pogba play as 2/8 ahead of him, because he doesn't hold on his own for Rennes. You know, he plays in a dual pivot, or he plays as a box-to-box. He's not a Declan Rice where he'll come in, hold on his own and let Paul Pogba and Bruno play as 2/8. He's more of a player that's going to play in the pivot with Paul Pogba or play in a pivot with Donny van de Beek. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's preferred formation is the 4-2-3-1, and Camavinga, when he plays for Rennes in the pivot, he plays in a 4-2-3-1 formation with another player in a pivot for Rennes. So he very much fits Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's system, and he's quite a defensive pivot-minded player. But France, Kante and Pogba play in the pivot, and you know, they work very well in the pivot because Kante, you know, people say he's a DM, but he's not a DM that really holds on his own. He's a DM that holds with another DM, but he does more of the defensive responsibility. Kante often plays in a pivot with Pogba, and because Kante's the mobility one, he does a lot of defensive duty. He likes to bring the ball forward. Pogba's allowed to free roam a bit more, get forward, get on the edge of the box. And I think Camavinga is a player that could possibly be moulded into that Kante role. You know, Didier Deschamps compared the two. Obviously, he's the France manager. This is how I think Manchester United could line up next season in midfield if we sign Edouard Camavinga. Now, I think because Matic has passed it, Fred and Pogba is our best sort of duo in the pivot, but we've seen Fred for Brazil next to Casemiro looks better more as the pivot player that goes forward because he is more of a box-to-box, and we know Pogba is better as the pivot player that goes forward. Now, Camavinga will be better as the pivot player that defends because he is a more defensive player than Fred, McTominay and Pogba, you know, and I think if Camavinga was to play for Manchester United, he would be in a pivot with Paul Pogba. Camavinga is not able to hold on his own at the moment because he's not that kind of player. I think Declan Rice, Wilfred and Ndidi could come in and hold on their own, but Camavinga could play in the pivot with Paul Pogba and almost have that Kante-like role where he does a bit more of the defensive duty so Pogba can free roam. But he's more of a dual pivot player than a CDM that holds on his own. So does he solve our CDM solution? Well, if we keep Paul Pogba and Ole wants to play with two players in the pivot in the 4-2-3-1 formation, yes, he does, because, you know, France play with Kante and Pogba in the pivot. You know, he can do that defensive work. He could get the best out of Paul Pogba, and he's a player for the future. He could, in 2-3 years' time, be moulded into that CDM that holds on their own, and we can let Donny have a free roam role, like more of a free roam role as a box-to-box. We can let Pogba as a box-to-box. We can play Donny and Bruno as 2/8. We can play Pogba and Bruno as 2/8. He could be moulded into that player, but he's an 18-year-old player, so if United signed Camavinga, he wouldn't be holding on his own like maybe if we signed Declan Rice, but he's a player for the future. He would work very well with Paul Pogba, and he's a defensive improvement upon McTominay, Fred, and he's definitely one for the future. So it'd be an absolutely fantastic signing, but this is likely how Man United would line up, probably with Camavinga in the midfield, and then he might drop a bit more defensive as Pogba goes forward more. As you know, Pogba's really good at breaking the lines and scoring on the edge of the box, while Camavinga's very, very sound defensively. So that's my video on how Camavinga could fit in at Manchester United. Please hit that like button, subscribe down below, share this video. Any questions you have for me, put them in the comment section. I'll try to reply to a few. Thanks everyone for tuning into today's video. For more content like this, please do like, subscribe, share. See you next time. Bye.